Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Our apologies that we can't be there in person as planned. Unfortunately, the extreme weather and the caution of travel made us decide to make this a digital online event. But we will be in Manchester in the coming few weeks, so it'd be lovely to see you all in person then. But thank you for taking the time today to very hot day to join us on this webinar just to learn more about making a good submission. Just to sort of give you a few sort of housekeeping tips. So we do have a Q&A function that's set up. So at the end of the media editor, we will obviously be taking questions from all attendees. So please feel free to pop those in the Q&A box. If for any reason the Q&A box doesn't work, there's also a chat function. So if anything doesn't work, we will absolutely ensure that we get to those questions. So please feel free to use those resources available for the questions at the end. I'm Amy. I'm Global Head of Sales for the Legal 500 series. Also here today is James Crombie, who is the UK Business Development Head of UK. He's also the Regional Manager for Manchester and the North. So he is very well placed to answer any questions that are specifically linked to that region. We have Mark Doyle, who is a Senior BD Manager for the UK Legal 500, and he's been with the business for a while, so he's a good pair of hands if you have any questions or have any information regarding the new products that are coming to the fore, which include Research Plus and our events portfolio. And then, of course, we have Ben. So Ben is the Deputy Editor of the UK Legal 500 series and the overall research manager for the entire Legal 500 series. And he will be able to give you top tips on how you can improve your rankings going forward and just things that you should be aware of when making a submission to the Legal 500 United Kingdom. So let's move forward without hesitation. So I just wanted to give you a very brief overview of the Legal 500 portfolio and how that's changed in the last few years. So obviously the cornerstone of what we do is very much the research and the rankings. It's something we've done very successfully for the last 37 years. We are bridging the gap between law firm and client, whether that be a private client or whether that be a business client or a corporate client. The Legal 500 continues to provide impartial research and ranking information when they are looking at the very best law firms to refer work to. One thing that we have changed or moved our hands to in the most recent years is reward and recognition of the entire legal fraternity. So that includes in-house lawyers, business clients, even GCs across the UK. We launched some time ago, and it started in the UK, the GC Power List, which rewards and recognises the work of in-house lawyers who are driving legal business forward. Previously, we've had questions from law firms about client fatigue. How often can we ask them to come forward and be a referee for us? You know, should we be using the same people? Is it going to impact our relationship with them? So we've actually looked at tackling that head on because we now reward and recognise those individuals. We invite you, partners at the firm, to actually put forward clients that you feel should be included in that GC Power List. So yeah, if you have clients that you feel you'd like to put forward, please do feel free to do so. Obviously, it creates that feeling of reciprocity in that they are being rewarded and recognised and are happy to sort of reward and recognise your firm at the same time. It's really good for business development. It's really good for reigniting relationships that perhaps have sort of gone off the radar, or you haven't spoken to an individual recently and you want to sort of kickstart that relationship. We also have the Legal 500 Awards. We have a variety of recognition within the rankings, Hall of Fame, Next Gen Lawyers, Rising Stars. And this year will actually be the inaugural Northern Powerhouse Awards, which will take place in Manchester in November. And that will specifically look at rewarding and recognising law firms and lawyers in the north of England for the work that they've done in the last 12 months. So look out for information for the Northern Powerhouse Awards. That will be coming very soon. From a publishing perspective, obviously we've discussed the directory. We also publish a number of magazines, both for in-house and for private practice. So Legal Business Magazine is aimed at managing partners. It gives them much needed information of how to run a successful law firm. We have the In-House Lawyer Magazine, which is aimed at UK-based clients and in-house lawyers. That's updates, technical advice, co-publishing from leading law firms in the UK. And we have GC Magazine, which specifically looks at the non-technical side of law and gives in-house lawyers more information of how to motivate their team, how to manage their own career, best practice. And then 500 Magazine, which is the newest addition to the group. That is a digital magazine and it's global, and that's for private practice and for in-house. And that looks at a variety of different hot topics. We tend to have specific issues that look at entire topics, such as ESG, corporate restructuring. A variety of different topics are covered in 500 Magazine. So if you'd like to be involved in that, please do get in touch. We continue, hopefully, to make your lives easier from a BD perspective, in that we have got, for firms who profile, the added value of having the historical data tool, which gives you access to all of the rankings from 2008 to present day, which allows you to look at your peer firms, to compare your rankings and analyse your progress year to year, both from a individual perspective as well as a team perspective, across a firm perspective. So it's quite good if you are tendering for work, you can do a direct comparison of where you are versus your peer firms. If any of you want to know more about that or aren't sure of how to use that particular tool, please do get in touch. We're more than happy to do a demonstration. And then, of course, we have Convert Now, which allows you to convert your Chambers and Partners submission into a Legal 500 submission at the click of a button. We have some new initiatives for this year. I won't labour these too much because we do have individual slides on them. They include Meet the Teams, a Manchester City Hub, and also MPUs. And as I touched on previously, we are going to be having the inaugural Northern Powerhouse Awards this year. So hopefully that's something of interest to everybody on the call. Now what I will do is I will pass across to James, who is head of BD UK, and he will take you through some details that relate specifically to online usage of the Legal 500 in Manchester and the North.
Cheers, Amy. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all well. How are you all doing all right in this heat today? Yeah, so as Amy said, just going to cover a few bits about specifics in Manchester in terms of our visibility and just a couple of those new online initiatives that she touched upon. As you can see, just some stats here regarding the work that we've been doing on our SEO and how we've been growing the audience over the last couple of years. Well, I should say last few years. It's been an ongoing process, but the audience is at an all-time high. As you can see from that, pretty exceptional, over 1.4 million users just for the UK section of the Legal 500 UK, the legal500.com, which continues to be our largest section. Of those, over 100,000 were unique to the Northwest pages, which obviously makes it one of our largest sections, which is fantastic visibility for that region. Just some percentage stats there in terms of the importance of the visibility of firm content when it comes to the Legal 500. 70% of clients wanting to read about law firm profiles, 74% about lawyer biographies. These are really important in terms of making sure that we're offering you the best kind of visibility for your law firm, and we'll touch upon that when we talk about some of the new initiatives and exactly why they've been brought in. You can see as well that this doesn't just relate to the Northwest as a region in terms of Manchester itself. Thanks to our excellent SEO, and this is something we've been really pushing, and I've worked very hard to make sure that you're getting the best return from that. From a Google perspective, we'd expect the first organic return on searches for things such as law firm in Manchester, leading law firm in Manchester, family law firm Manchester, and leading business law firm Manchester to return the top organic search as being the Legal 500. And I mean, it really does go to show that we're always part of the process. And based on that, as we'll see from the next slide, this is what's led us to create some of these new features. One of the things one of the main things, I think, for those who remember the sort of, the massive print editions we used to send out and the switch from those to online only, is it's really opened up the opportunity to make the content that we encourage firms to provide to be a lot more free-flowing and bespoke. This is where things like new initiatives like the Meet the Team feature has come in. As I mentioned on the previous slide, with the amount of clients, I believe it was 74% of clients are really keen to read lawyer biographies. Meet the Team is the next natural evolution of that. Rather than just saying, here's your team based in Manchester, here's who they are. Meet the Team being the natural evolution gives you a lot more bespoke content on those teams. It's team specific to practice areas. We obviously appreciate that law firms have specific teams for specific areas. This is something that maybe hasn't been covered in the past, but certainly is with Meet the Teams. It includes things like an organogram of the team, for example, outlining not just the team, but the structure of the team, who's the best person to speak to about specific issues or queries. Excuse me. Rankings for the team, bespoke content relating to deals, etc. Very much in the same way that the firm profile progressed to the microsite package, which now offers firm profile, client testimonials, social media links, many different ways of contacting specific areas of the business and hearing about specific areas of the business from a number of different areas. Meet the Team has taken the biographies to that level. You can upload relevant articles, for example, relevant team content related to those teams specifically, and individuals within those teams will be featured, contact information for each individual team member, all structured in a very neat package that will take clients to specific areas within that team and make it a lot easier to get in touch with specific members of the firm that are most relevant to them. And really, it's going back to that message of making everything much more bespoke and giving you at the firm a platform and really allowing you guys to make it accessible to the best and most key clients that you think are relevant for that area. And that's really the main message behind Meet the Team. It's just taken the biographies and how we connect you with individuals at the firm to the next logical step, really, just giving you more value from that package. And I'm just going to hand over to Mark now, who's going to tell you a bit more about Research Plus.
Thanks, James. Morning, everyone. As both James and Amy have alluded to, the new initiatives are many within Legal 500, but one of the key ones that we launched in the last 18 months is Research Plus. This was born from a lot of feedback and questions from law firms, partners specific, and marketing teams asking for more information about what the market thinks about their firm or their practice area within that firm. So we thought about this long and hard. We thought, well, this can't be something that you can just purchase off the shelf. It has to be a full-blown research product. And as such, it runs concurrently alongside the genuine research process that we have for submissions. So what does it offer? It's very, very in-depth. We asked the market about the practice in question's reputation. So we're speaking to not just your own clients, but everyone else's, and seeing what they think of your reputation. How do you compare to other firms? This is quite crucial. If you've got obviously your own unique competitors within a certain area, it allows you to compare and analyze against those firms in particular. And this is a warts and all product. So whilst it's obviously extremely useful to have this information, there might be some uncomfortable reading as well, but that's all part of the process, and that's important for all firms to understand. We also look at client response rates. We look at the submission. This is one of the key areas again. So every firm's submission, one of the biggest questions everyone gets every year is, can we have some feedback on why our ranking is such? What did we do right? What did we do wrong? And this allows for a very detailed breakdown of your submission across the business. So whatever submissions you put in for whatever practice areas, you will get in-depth analysis of what you do great and what you need to improve on for the next time around. Crucially as well, it's looking at what do clients, your own clients, say about the firm's practice. Now, this is obviously done on an anonymous basis. They're not going to potentially tell you this, So this is why the research is so important. You need to know what the clients are saying about you. Now, it can be fantastic, and I'm sure it is in most cases, but there might be some areas where you could improve, and this is where we will gain that information and pass that on to you. Very, very important. And of course, the piece of resistance is the client quotes. Now, obviously, we are in possession of many quotes once when we're doing the research process. Lots of referees allow us to say that we think the firm is amazing in this area or that area, and these individuals are superb. It's allowed these quotes, there's quite a few of them, and allows you to use them for your own internal marketing and external marketing purposes. You won't be able to get your hands on these, so to speak, in any other way. This is only forms part of the research. So whatever comes out of that research, you will get the full package, which includes many numerous testimonials and quotes. So the bottom line is this product, as I said earlier, you can't purchase it any time of the year. That's just not going to give you what you need. You want something which is fully in depth, answers the questions, whether you like them or not, then this particular product must run alongside the traditional research process. Obviously, if you've got any questions on this, you can ask any one of us at another time. But as I say, this is one of our key products and has launched in the UK in the last edition and has been extremely well received thus far. So we expect this to be even more so at the next edition. So any questions between now and then, please feel free to give us a shout.
Thanks, Mark. And then Jimmy, if you could please go through briefly the Spotlight MPU, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. This sort of relates to what we've been talking about when it came to meet the teams in terms of taking things to the next logical step. I'm sure you'll all be familiar with the banners that we used to sort of house at Legal 500, particularly in the UK. Very linear. It was sort of 3 slides that linked you through to a firm website, which I think we can all agree we're sort of over time. Where we've taken this to now is we want to make sure that we're giving you as much opportunity to talk about maybe some of those areas of the firm or working within a practice that we don't cover in areas such as the editorial or that you don't really particularly want to cover in a firm overview. And this is where this new Spotlight feature comes in. It's a new MPU banner, mid-page unit banner, sits very proudly at the top right-hand side of an editorial section of choice. The great thing about this item, or this feature, I should say, is that it is specific, one per practice area, which makes it incredibly bespoke. As well as that, it's well, as you can see from the picture here, it's a very fetching piece of kit. It's much better looking than the original banners. We have 3 options on there. The ones that we've chosen to place on there, just in terms of getting clients to the most areas of the site possible, the firm profile, a web link to your own website, and an email to link through to you directly and ask any questions. It's branded with a firm logo. But one of the key points of this as well is it gives you the opportunity to write an expertise report. Now, the reason we put that in is, as I say, it may well be that as a ranked firm, you're getting spoken about by the Legal 500 in a third-person perspective, which is fantastic. You've obviously got as well your firm profile if you're choosing to place that content, and that's usually important for getting your message across to clients. Now, what you might not have featured any of that content thus far is a specific part of the practice that maybe people haven't mentioned or heard about, and that you'd really like to push, that you think clients would be interested in, that you think may give you the edge over competitors within your chosen practice area. Some of these examples that we've been given, AI, I had a firm mention to me that they'd like to talk about the AI side of their practice and how that's up and coming, which is exactly what things like this, which is what this expertise report is for. It's really to give you an opportunity to talk about anything that your firm might be doing, that you want to get a message across to people, and give you the opportunity to get that in the most eye-catching way possible. As I've said, these are bespoke, 1 unit per practice area. They come in 3, 6 or 12-month packages. So it's really, again, down to how you want to manage that content, who you think would be best placed to see it, and what kind of clients you want to drive towards your overall firm content. And this Spotlight MPU really does give you the opportunity to do that.
Brilliant, thank you. We will also be launching City Hubs for the Legal 500 this year, and they will come later in the autumn. So as most of us are aware, the way that clients purchase legal services is changing. I think there's a much bigger emphasis on the quality of the work and the cost benefits of the work, as opposed to where a law firm is necessarily based. And because of that, we have decided that we want to promote, or clients have said they want to see more information about key cities of legal excellence. So this year we will be launching City Hubs in Manchester, Leeds, Birmingham and Bristol. And what this does is it gives the law firms within those cities an opportunity to promote themselves from a city perspective, not just from a regional perspective, which is where our traditional research covers. So what we will be doing within these City Hubs is we will be drawing in the editorial that currently exists or will exist when we launch in October. And we will be bringing that into a City Hub, which will focus just on the rankings for the firms that operate or exist, have a presence within those cities. This is an opportunity to engage with potential clients at city level. It gives us an opportunity to house the more bespoke content that law firms are now wanting to provide via Legal 500. Whilst there will also be an editorial overview, so Ben and Georgina will be writing an overview of the featured city. We will also then be looking for a commercial city partner who will provide an insight into doing business in the featured city. We will also be doing various different video-led initiatives, such as corporate conversations, which will be clients interviewing partners or partners interviewing clients. We will then also have the opportunity to have a panel of Meet the Experts, and this will be broken down by practice area, where we will present a question every quarter from a business client or a private client, in a specific practice area, and that will keep the content fresh. It will give you a platform to demonstrate your expertise and your capabilities within a particular practice area. And it will also then give the client much needed information about Manchester as a city of legal excellence, about the quality of work, about the type of work that's going on, and the reasons essentially why they should be using law firms in Manchester and referring their work to law firms that operate in Manchester. So those will be launching after the actual editorial. They'll come a couple of months later. If you would like to have more information about how you become a city partner, or indeed how you become a practice area expert, please do get in touch with any one of us. At the end of this presentation, we will be sending all of this across to you, so you will have it and you'll be able to digest it in your own time. So we now move on to the bit that everyone's been waiting for, which is Ben's section of the Meet the Editor Q&A. So thank you for listening to us about the commercial elements and the new initiatives within the Legal 500 series. I will now pass across to Ben, who will be able to talk you through making a fantastic submission. So Ben, over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining today. Good to be able to talk to all of you about what we're up to. Looking forward to answering lots of questions. So as was mentioned before, if you do have any questions, please fire away. We've got the Q&A function and the chat function. If you pop your questions up in there, we can take a look, and I will be fielding those. So get cracking on that if you'd like to. But yes, broadly, I'm going to just take a look at the overall sort of submission process, of some hints and tips. You know, I imagine some of you will be very familiar with it. So broadly, I'll go over you know, some pointers on that, and if you know, anything pops up as I'm going through, please do ask questions, and we can get on and cover those. So yeah, so broadly, the three key planks of the research are, of course, the interviews with law firms, the referee feedback, and the beloved submission form, which I know you all know well. And of course, the submission form is your chance to shout about what makes you special, what the firm's doing. And, you know, we place a huge amount of emphasis on assessing the quality of work that firms are handling. So we're looking to assess that in the submission form. And so when we're trying to figure out, you know, the standard of work that firms are handling, you know, we're looking at a combination of factors. So that is the complexity of the work, the particular significance of it, obviously the value and standard of the client. But one thing that we really, really encourage firms to do is to try and focus on keeping it clear, and if possible, not too long, because, you know, too much detail, too much jargon can obviously sometimes obscure those factors. So please do try to keep it brief if you can. You know, the key thing when we're, you know, obviously our rankings are organized by tiers, so we're benchmarking firms against them, against each other. So, you know, to get that promotion, what we need to see is just a clear case that the work that your firm is handling is on a par with the firms in the tier above. And then obviously we will then sound out the market about that. You know, we talk to you know, as many law firms as possible, and we, you know, gather a huge amount of referee feedback. So we pull all those factors together to make our decisions. So in the submission form, as well as the work highlights, we really do look for, you know, strong evidence of year-on-year growth. You know, we're looking for practices that are on the up. So anything that you can provide in that regard, obviously team growth, revenue growth, you know, that can be off the record. You can provide the information if you know, any indication that shows that the practices are progressing and developing. Expansion to new areas of work is obviously a real big one. You know, obviously we're just looking for an overall picture of a team on the up. You know, so anything you can do to present that picture will help. So with regards to the interviews, similar advice applies to the submission, in that, you know, we're very aware, lawyers are obviously very keen to go into huge detail about the technical aspects of their work. You know, but what really helps with you know, present a compelling case is when lawyers have just a real broad understanding of the markets they operate in. They're familiar with their peers, and they can explain to us sort of where they sit within the market, rather than just saying, you know, we're fantastic, we should be promoted, you know, we should be tier one. You know, what's really helpful for us is when lawyers will give us an honest and compelling picture of where they sit in relation to their peers. So as well as just talking about how fantastic you are, what we want to hear is who else is on the up, who's perhaps not doing so well, you know, which are the firms to look out for, you know, who you realistically see as your peers and why. Because then we can take these assertions from the interviews and then we can back that up with the evidence, because obviously, you know, we have all the details in the submission form and then all the hearsay from the interviews, and it's just about sense checking those two things against each other and then pulling that together with the referee feedback, of course. So it's very important for firms to make their case, but don't just talk about yourself. Always try and talk about the you know, where you sit in relation to the other firms in the market as well. So on the on referee feedback, I think it's useful just to briefly go over the process for that, because we do, you know, we get a lot of questions about how that all works. I mean, the most important thing to say, and a lot of you will know this already, is it's so important to get referees in on time. The vast majority of referees are contacted at the very beginning of research, and obviously that really helps us, because the earlier we gather feedback, the more time we have to appropriately consider it, bounce it off other firms in interviews, you know, what referees are saying. You know, we want to be able to digest that as early as possible. You know, firms always ask about, you know, when's the deadline to submit feedback. You know, we give firms a deadline, and the earlier it's always the earlier the better. You know, but we can accept later feedback. If you find out when a researcher is still working, we can, that they may be able to consider feedback later on in the process, but it's just much better to get it in early on, and encourage your referees to do that as early as possible, because it just makes our life much easier. But having said that, the one thing to say is a new thing that we're doing this year is we're trialing a new system to accept referee feedback all year round. So you may have seen on the website we have a big new button, submit feedback, and that is something that we're looking at, so we can keep the site live all year round. As I said, obviously the vast majority of feedback is still submitted and considered at the start of the research process for the reasons I mentioned, but we do want to be open to receiving feedback all year round. So that's something we're looking at introducing. Firms always ask about resends when clients are contacted, when referees are contacted. We have a team that look into the best times to resend emails to maximize our response rates. That's been going incredibly well. Last year, overall across the UK, response rates were up about 50%, just because we are maximizing the responses we get from referees. So we're gathering a huge amount from referees, and as the others mentioned, you can access that in full as part of the other research products that we offer. One other thing to mention, which we introduced last year, which is now well established across the guide, is firms to watch. So this is something new that we've introduced, which runs alongside the traditional ranking. But the idea really behind firms to watch is to be a bit more nimble and responsive. It's a very fast moving market. There's lots of new firms, practices, spin-offs popping up all the time. We want to, show that we're alive to that, and that, it's not a case that firms have to wait years and years to get recognition from us. Obviously, for full ranking, we're really looking for, a really compelling case to get into the full rankings. But, when good people set up new firms, new practices, we want to acknowledge that. So firms to watch is a new addition. We introduced it for London research last year, so it's been filtering through the various guides. So this year for the outside London research, that's been rolled out fully. So hopefully we're just recognizing a lot more firms, expanding our horizons and spotting the firms that will could be ranked tomorrow, or in some cases just firms that have a bit more of a niche focus. So I would say, often firms will look at our rankings and think, well, perhaps we don't quite fit the existing rankings. We're always open to hearing about new firms, and we always want to recognize good work where we can. So if firms don't perhaps perfectly fit our rankings, that firm to watch may be a suitable outlet for them. So yeah, that's a sort of significant change that we've had. On just to touch on feedback on rankings, I know the others mentioned Research Plus, which is obviously the most in-depth product that we offer. So if you really want all the nuts and bolts of what we can find out about your practice, then that's definitely the best option. When we do publish, which is usually at the end of September, we enjoy some lively engagement with the market. So we're always open to talking to firms about their rankings, why they've been promoted, why they've not been promoted. We prioritize the firms that do pay to profile with us in that regard. But we are always open to discussions on that front. So please, you're welcome to get in touch, and we look forward to discussing the reasons and all the thinking behind our work. So yes, that is broadly that. So here we go. So we've got some questions already. Here we go. Let's have a look what we've got. So there's a question, are firms disadvantaged if they anonymize their cases heavily? Now, this is one I can reassure you on. You know, firms, no, is the straight answer. You know, we're fully aware that there's lots of work that firms do, which is confidential. You know, as long as you give us enough of an indication of you know, the significance of the work, we fully accept that firms just have to provide confidential information, and we're very used to dealing with that and factoring it into how we assess the work from firms. So no is the easy answer there. There's a question here. So it says someone has asked, one thing we find difficult is the broad time frame informing referees to keep an eye out for emails from Legal 500. Is there any way of sending law firms or head of department a clearer picture of when emails get sent out and what questions they contain, so we can inform clients more directly? Now, again, yes, we do we do have a concerted push to inform firms when the referee emails are going out. I know the team do try to give people about a week's notice before emails going out. If you're not getting those emails, it's simply just a case of getting in touch with us and asking to be added to the mailing list. So then you can be on those emails, and it can go, obviously it can go to whoever within the firm needs to know. So you've got heads up and you can let clients know. The questions they contain, they're broadly similar year on year. So generally we ask referees to talk about the practice as a whole, and then we ask them to talk about the individuals within the practice, and then we ask if they have any other recommendations for any other firms that they work with. Those are the key questions that we draw the sort of the text responses, I guess, that we use and publish as part of the research. There are other things that we ask firms, we ask our referees to assess. Sliders, we're asking referees to rate firms on a variety of metrics, but by all means do get in touch and we can tell you what's in those, and then you can you can inform your referees as such. Okay, so there's a question from Michael Ports. In terms of individual solicitor recommendations, for example, rising stars, what factors help influence the solicitor's success there, and how is that judgment made? Is there anything those solicitors should be doing? Okay, that's a very good question. Obviously, we have a number of individual rankings: Hall of Fame, leading individuals, next generation partners, and rising stars. This particular question with regards to rising stars. So rising stars was something we introduced a couple of years ago because we wanted to do better at acknowledging up and coming talent. So rising stars is broadly reserved for lawyers who are below partner level, but clearly on the up. And the main factors that we are looking to pick out rising stars are, real strong evidence of involvement in key matters. If for instance, an up-and-coming associate, senior associate, is regularly involved with the biggest partners in the team on key matters, that's a real just something that's likely to catch our eye. And then what we'll do in tandem with that is look to see whether they have recognition from referees. Those are two strong factors. Obviously, it's for more junior lawyers, it's unlikely that other firms will give them name checks, but it does happen. We really do push in the law firm interviews to get firms to talk about good people at other firms, and it would surprise you. A lot of lawyers are very generous with their recommendations, and they will speak well of up and coming people. So there's a strong emphasis on the first two factors, but definitely a real slam dunk is that if an up and coming lawyer is being name checked by peers, then absolutely those are the kind of people we're going to be considering for rising stars. So yeah, as I said, those are generally below partner level, whereas once you make partner, then you'd be considered for the other rankings higher up. There's a question from Peter Stringer, which says, how best to deal with individuals' previous firm experience and career breaks or lapse ranking? Now, the previous firm experience, that's something that does come up in terms of firms often ask this question in terms of how they should deal with it. It's, obviously, a lawyer's track record at previous firms is hugely instructive. We can see people have worked at good firms and handled impressive work at their previous firms. That's something that we really do take into consideration. The qualifier there is that what we don't consider is what in the work highlights is work that was fully completed at their previous firms. So while I would encourage firms and individuals to talk about their track record in the individual section of a submission form, I would strongly discourage you of including work that was completed at previous firms. I mean, some submissions we do see it, firms will put in work from previous firms and they'll very clearly label it and say, please note this was entirely handled at a previous firm, and that's very helpful. But the reality is that work at previous firms was all it's a team effort, isn't it? Obviously, so if work was carried out at a previous firm, then it was within the framework of that firm. So it's not considered when we're looking at work highlights, basically. But the simple message is be honest, really, in the submission, because some firms will try and sneak in some work that's not relevant in that regard. So have a look. Oh, what's the next one? Question about whether tier 5 is the lowest ranking tier. I think that's a quick and easy one to say, as it completely varies from ranking to ranking. I'm not sure what our rankings are with the most tiers, but we definitely have ones with more than 5 anyway. So that's an easy one. And a question about whether we look for a good variety of referees. Yes, absolutely. That's very important. Referees come from all sources. Obviously, senior clients are the best. Generally are the best, but we do accept feedback from barristers, experts, firms that people refer work to. But I would say, sometimes you'll see a submission where the referees are very heavily leaning towards, say barristers that they work with, and it's usually very clear. The feedback that barristers provide is very helpful, and it all helps to build up that picture. But it's not. We wouldn't want too much of that. Obviously, it's much better to have that direct client feedback. So I always encourage you to provide a good mix. I would say. Feedback from a variety of sources is only going to help. There's a question from Laura Parkinson, which sounds like it might be one for more for you guys. James, Mark, Amy, talking about clients visiting profiles. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I haven't. What can you mind?
So the question from Laura says, you mentioned that 77% of clients want to visit profiles. How do you define clients?
It's a good question. So basically, we have, or have in the past, we've had a survey on the website. So the way that that information is derived is from whoever has completed that survey. Some of them have chosen to outline whether they're a business client or a private client. Some are anonymous. We also do a number of surveys of the different events that we attend. So we're heavily involved with the ACC and the International Bar Association. So we also garner feedback from those clients as well. So I'd probably say it leans more towards the business side, but it does include private client. I would say the vast majority of the private client's visibility is via our SEO. So quite often, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Joe Public on the street knows the Legal 500 and comes to use the Legal 500 to risk mitigate a decision of which divorce lawyer to use. But if they are using Google to search for a divorce lawyer or another area of, say, family law, when they use the Google search function, the Legal 500 relevant editorial pages will always appear as an organic return, meaning that you're driving traffic to that microsite and those pages organically. What we can do as well for firms who are ranked in the Legal 500, we are able to give you stats on visitors to your microsite. So if you are interested, regardless of whether you profile or not, in understanding how much traction you get via a Google search or via somebody using the search function within the website, you can absolutely email me directly, email James directly or Mark, and we can actually provide you with that information. We can't tell you specifically who, because obviously data protection, but we can tell you where they've come from in the country or in the globe and how frequently they've visited those pages. So please do feel free to ask those questions.
Good, thank you. A couple more coming in now. One from Victoria Moffat. Are there any new or changed practice areas this year? There's two main ones for London, which are completely new. One is the private prosecutions ranking in the crime section. This was something that we've been looking at for a couple of years now. There are a couple of firms that specialize in this area, and then some bigger firms which have a strong practice in that regard. So that one is coming in this year. And the other one is costs lawyers. So that sits within the dispute section. And so we're looking at, there's two types of practices there. So there's independent practices of cost lawyers who work with all manner of clients, lots of firms, helping them with their costs work, budgeting and also litigation. And then many big firms have teams of cost lawyers, in-house as well. So we're ranking those together this year for the first time. So we've had quite an enthusiastic take up for that one this year. So that's a new one. So those are the two completely new rankings for London. One thing that we're giving real strong consideration to is class actions, group litigation. It's a market, there's a lot of scrutiny on it at the moment. Obviously, there's a group, a sort of subgroup of firms that are focused in this area within sort of commercial litigation, and so that's something we're keeping a very close eye on. It's not happening this year, but I would say it would be extremely likely for next year. So that's one thing to look out for, definitely. A question from Pete Davis. Are ongoing cases useful to include, or is it better for completed cases to be highlighted? Obviously, interesting cases take place over more than 12 months, and theoretically, an interesting matter in, say, Clin-Neg could be included 2 or 3 editions in a row. Very valid point. This is, again, it's good. It's a really good thing for firms to include a mix of completed work and ongoing work. If work, as the question says, some cases go on for many years. As long as there are significant developments during the research process, it's perfectly fine to include these sort of cases that go year on year. But if a fantastic case completed, say, just before the research period, there's no reason why you shouldn't include that too, really. It's obviously we work to, for example, for this year's research, it's covering, the whole of 2021 and 2022 to date. But, if a huge case was all tied up just before the start of the research period, then that's also fine to include, really, as well. But, the ongoing cases are great because it just gives a real picture of a busy practice. So yes, so that's a mix, I would advise. Would you consider a category for immigration work beyond employment and immigration. So we do have two subcategories for immigration in London. So we look at business immigration, and then we look at the more individual human rights type work. So we do have those two subcategories for London. We don't split it up in the outside London guide. For us to consider a new ranking, it would always need to be based on, us seeing strong evidence that there are, there's a real strong case for us to create a ranking, that there are enough firms pushing for it. So I would always encourage firms who are keen for us to do a new ranking is to perhaps get together with some other peers in your market and make the joint case, because one firm calling for a ranking is, the assessment is whether it's worthwhile and whether we should be, whether there are enough firms for us to do that ranking. So here's a good question from Laura Parkinson. Do you intend to maintain the current approach to geographical rankings, with some practice areas reviewed across the Northwest and others by city elsewhere? Now, this has been a real challenge during the past 2 years, with everyone working from home, because it's really blurred the boundaries with things. And we talk to a lot of big firms who will basically say that their Manchester, Leeds teams, they don't really see a distinction, whereas we have the regional distinctions, whereas they'll see them as combined teams, or obviously firms with national teams. It's something we're keeping a very close eye on. Obviously the mass shift to flexible working and working from home threw everything up in the air a bit, and then I guess that's continuing to some extent, right, because we're seeing how that's now settling down. So obviously we've not made any fundamental changes this year, but that's not to say we wouldn't in future. And national rankings is something that we're giving a lot of thought to, as I say, because so many firms do have those integrated national practices, and they don't see those regional distinctions we have. But the regional rankings do obviously still offer a lot of value, because we are able to recognize good firms that are very very specifically focused on one area. So it's how we balance that up, really. And so I think it's probably more likely that we would look to introduce some broader rankings to recognize the firms that aren't sort of divided by boundaries, I guess. So that's definitely on the agenda. It's something we're giving a lot of thought to. There's a question about ranking someone as a leading individual. So that what are we looking for in that regard? So similarly, as I discussed with Rising Star, so I could just briefly go over the other categories. So the next category up from Rising Star is next generation partner, which is what when firms make partner, when individuals make partner, and they're in those first couple of years as a partner. Leading individual, really we're looking for people who are at the top of their markets, ideally upwards of 5 years as a partner, although we would make some exceptions. Obviously some people are real high flyers and rise to the top very quickly, but leading individual, broadly over 5 years as a partner. And then what we really need is for them to be well known in their markets, in that they need to be recognized by peers. They need ringing endorsement from referees and clients, and just consistent evidence of market leading work. So leading on the best work in their firm submission, and ideally a couple of years. We might flag one person 1 year as a potential contender, and then if next year then they build on that, then that's the kind of individual that we would put into that category. And one thing just to follow on from that is that Hall of Fame, in the past, our approach to Hall of Fame was very much a years-based assessment, in that in the past you needed 8 years as a leading individual and then you would go into Hall of Fame, but that's changed over the past year. We're now making more of an editorial assessment in that, and that's partly because we want to make sure that, you know, perhaps people who were overlooked in the past for leading individual ranking but are deserving can go into Hall of Fame now. So that's now based on the editorial assessment rather than just a number of years as leading individual. Yeah, Vina is just asking a follow-up question about the immigration section. One thing to say is that when it comes to our London rankings, while they are you know, obviously labeled as London rankings, a lot of our London rankings do include national firms and do include firms that aren't based in London, but that are carrying out work that's just as good as the firms in the London rankings. A lot of the London rankings are, you know, sort of lend themselves to having a, you know, a national focus. So I would say if there isn't an appropriate ranking for you in the region in which you're based, then, and you do feel like you're on a par with firms that we rank in London, there's no bar to submitting for London. Like I said, there are, as you'll see, I'm sure if you look through, you'll see there are many firms that are ranked in London who aren't actually based there. But, you know, obviously you don't need to be based in London to act for national, you know, really very good national clients. So so by all means submit for London, and we can assess you and like that. I think that's everything at the moment.
Amazing. Okay. Well, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. And as we said, we will obviously send over this presentation later on this week. And if there are any other questions, please feel free to get in touch. We will also give a link to the FAQs pages of the Legal 500 website, where you can find a lot of answers should you need them. And yeah, I hope it was a good session. I hope it helped provide some insight into making a submission. And if there's any elements that you want to discuss in more detail, please do get in touch. I hope you don't melt. I'm certainly off to go and have an ice bath. It's boiling. But yeah, enjoy the rest of the day. Have a great afternoon. And thank you again for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you all soon when we visit Manchester in person over the coming weeks. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks.